To get other tips on assembling innovation allies, we went to New York to talk to Fiona Grandi. Fiona is the National Managing Partner for Innovation and Enterprise Solutions at KPMG. In her role, she's responsible for driving the cultural, strategic, and financial advancement of KPMG's innovation efforts. We should also note that KPMG is a sponsor of this podcast episode and Innovation Leader's recent report. To get us started, what are innovation champions and what role do they play at big companies?
Innovation champions are unique heroes in the business environment. They're certainly creative individuals, but something that distinguishes them is their ability to commit their resources, which could be their personal time, their career path, it could be their relationship capital, really to develop ideas. They have a particular kind of open mindset. They're influencers. They really have a sense of how to gain groundswell around an idea or perhaps change somebody who doesn't agree with the idea. And I also think that they are very good at knowing what they don't know and seeking out individuals that have different perspectives and might give them a different lens on what they're trying to accomplish.
So we saw this in our benchmarking report last year that people found champions and allies really helpful. But how do you actually find them?
Finding allies is really at its fundamental basis about networking kind of 101. You need to look for different types of people. You want individuals who are going to give you honest answers. You're going to want individuals who you may need their support down the road when you are trying to get stakeholder agreement around a piece of innovation. Or you may want those people that just, look at the world in a different way that you do. And it's not one of these, it's all of these have to be allies to really give you that full perspective. When you find individuals like this, they will really accelerate what you're trying to do. And I think it's important to sit down and map out who you think these people are and then identify where you've got holes in that relationship or ally map and come up with that wish list of people that perhaps you don't know or who have not supported you in the past to get on board, get to know what you're trying to accomplish better.
So you mentioned getting people on board who may not have been supportive in the past. A lot of our members want to know, how do you convince someone who's skeptical of innovation to support you?
You need to know the detractors and people who are prone to disagree with changing. It's difficult to change somebody's attitude at times. Probably one of the most important things you can do is understand what the individual's agenda is, what their business mandate is, and why they may disagree with what you're trying to do. The other thing is really trying to understand what their personal perspective is. I think when you make it personal and you ask what they think about innovation or what may be something that's a hot topic to them and grounding yourself around that, you'll find that you'll get farther faster.
And I'd love to explore how you build allies with the folks at the top. How do you get senior leadership to be a member of your network of champions?
I think it's the same concept as developing allies. However, I think that it requires more pre-work, more homework around understanding their business goals and how their teams operate and even their personal styles. Don't underestimate the amount of time that it takes. And bring along friends with you. In other words, if you know that a particular leader really resonates with somebody who's sort of adjacent to your innovation activities, bring them into it. So make it less about me versus you and more about having a group discussion and the collective thinking.
We hear a lot that it's easier to get support once you have a track record of success. What can you do if your initiative is in its early stages and doesn't have that history behind it?
If you are well known or your horse in the race is already expected to win, then you're going to have a much easier time than if you're sort of the underdog or you're just an unknown commodity. There's a lot of things that you can do to elevate your brand and the perception of your innovation team and what they're trying to accomplish. The nuance there is two things. One is it's really not about bragging, but you need to get the message out there of the wins that you have had or things that would indicate that you're on a path that's a positive one or one that's likely for success. The other thing is don't expect charity. So go into conversations where individuals don't know you or you're trying to garner support, but bring something to the table. Connect the dots on how what you're doing may help their objectives. And don't expect that they're just going to sign up to commit time or support for you without that exchange and trust involved.
Last time we met, you talked about speaking the language of the different departments, which you've kind of touched on, but I'd love it if you could explain that a little bit more.
It's important to get to what is the currency of who you're working with. You have to invest in understanding why someone might want to help you, putting yourselves in their mindset, and then taking an outside-in look at what you're asking of them and why they might be reacting in a positive or a negative way.
So another challenge that we hear when it comes to finding allies is not invented here syndrome. How can teams overcome that hostility to external ideas and new ideas?
You get organ rejection, so to speak, and it really can derail innovation efforts. And some of it may be part of the culture. It may be part of the just personality of the individual whose support you're asking for. And it may be a source of pride. If they didn't think up this brilliance, why should they go out of their way to help you? There's two things that stand out to me that really can prevent or at least minimize that not invented here issue. One is collaboration and hosting natural places where individuals can come together and share ideas. And then down the road, there's the second part of this, which is a shared sense of credit and sharing that credit broadly to say, this is a great thing that I'm leading in my group, but actually the idea came from a hackathon that I participated in with somebody in a completely different part of the business 6 months ago. And sharing that credit and going back to that point of collaboration is really going to minimize issues with people rejecting your innovation.
So we covered a lot of ground during this conversation. My last question to you is if you have any tips on building a network of champions or advice that you think people should keep in mind.
There's a lot of different activities in the process of innovation and a lot of opportunities where you can bring outside in perspective in small ways. One of the things that I'm asked a lot is about how do you measure the impact of innovation? And often groups like to attribute kind of a score or a number, and instead I would say go with the scorecard, go with a set of metrics. But what's even more impactful would be to get that reviewed and approved by folks in other departments and say, without even real data on the page, what are the things that would make you feel like there's value coming out of some innovative activity, and get that up front. Focus on your culture in terms of what are the best parts and the places within your organization that might be ripe. If there are particular groups or networks that you can align with, or if there's opportunities to step outside the guardrails in the business in certain forums, use those. Use those as a platform to launch new ideas.
Understanding your colleagues across the organization, from legal to leadership to the business units, can help your team find allies, even in the most unlikely places.